Thank you for viewing this recording of a free event provided by Next Village San Francisco for our community. Next Village San Francisco is a local nonprofit providing services and support that empowers seniors to live independently in their own homes. We welcome people who want to keep connected with their community as members, volunteers, and supporters. We host 30 to 40 free activities and events each month for the public, and our members have access to our network of volunteers. Learn more and get involved at nextvillagesf.org. We hope you enjoy this video.
Camille, it's so wonderful to present to this group. So yeah, I'm also going to be very pleased to address any of your questions today. So a little bit about myself. Of course, my name is Bernadette Festa, and I've been told that Festa is a great name for a nutritionist because it means to feast. Okay, yeah. So hopefully we can be enjoying our meals and enjoying our foods, as well as awareness of the obvious health benefits that certain foods have in the diet. So yeah, without further ado, and I am, of course, a master's degree and registered dietitian. You might also see RDN. So both terms mean that we are registered with the American Academy of Nutrition, and have to go through a rigorous training. And not only that, we have to every 5 years accumulate so much continuing education to maintain our certification. Okay, so this is for you, this particular class. And I also hope that I will inspire you to look at your own diet and look at ways that you might like to improve or realize the health implications of just changing things. So yeah, so I put forth a couple of different topics that I will start with. We may not go into all of them because, as I said, this is for you and to address your questions. So next slide, please. So the prescription and the possible topics for today, certainly macronutrients. So there's been a lot about protein. Are we getting enough protein in our diet? And this is especially concerned with the elderly population, myself included. And how much do we need every day? Are we getting enough every day? The limitations I see is that with maturity, I do see some digestive issues. Maybe people can't have the amount of food they're used to having, or secondly, be intolerant in certain ways, like, oh, I can't do this food, or I can't do that food, or I can't include maybe certain meats in the diet. I also have a sister who I was talking to yesterday, and she's actually 94 years old. And I said to her, well, you know, I could say her name, Mary Lou or Lulu. How are you feeling? And what kinds of things are you including in your diet? So we talked a bit, and I may make reference to her within the hour. The second thing is the MIND diet, appropriately called. And we'll kind of go into that and spend a little time on that. And certainly bone health or bone issues are what I hear a lot. My background is in oncology, so I have also, I have very much heard about these issues that come up and people have asked me about, and clients and patients. And the ultra-processed food inclusion. So we'll talk about that too. I know recently there was whole articles in the New York Times about that. So I was getting appropriately questions on what are ultra-processed foods. Do we need to restrict them? Do we need to avoid them, minimize them? Or what are some of the healthy things that we can include? So I would hope that one would also include some healthy foods, and what they can do for us, and focus on that. Next, please. So the MIND diet. The MIND diet, it is an acronym for the Mediterranean diet, the M. So Mediterranean diet, it also merges a DASH diet. What DASH means is dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So one could easily look up, say, a Mediterranean diet. They have like a pyramid. The top of the pyramid is what to have lowest in the diet, and the bottom of the pyramid is what to have most. Excuse me, the top is what to have least, and the bottom is what to have most and to focus on. So you can go ahead and look at that. A good site for that is oldwaysmediterranean.org. In the dietary diet, that is, excuse me, the DASH diet, which is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, that's readily available. But we will go through what this MIND diet involves. So intervention, looking at ways to not only have it, but to intervene on some of the negative effects having to do with cognitive decline and the foods that would be healthiest for that. Next, please. Okay, so yeah, this is things to include. What is really fascinating is when I was looking at the MIND diet, our brain matter is 60% fat. Quite interesting, isn't it? You know, Camille, am my picture up there too? It's okay if it isn't. I thought it would be nice to see a real person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it might just be how your Zoom is set up.
Oh, okay.
You
So
can
hi.
change how it is, but
Thank you, but hi, everybody. So the brain matter is 60% fat. And another very interesting thing is of that 60% fat that the brain has, a lot of it is certain types of omega-3 fatty acids to make it more interesting. Okay. So we want through the MIND diet to have focus on cognitive resilience. So food has many different pathways in the brain. It could be anti-inflammatory, it could be pro-inflammatory, depending on what we eat. So this particular MIND diet talked about what kinds of foods to have, and also looked at the various individual, say, nutrients. So as you might expect, vegetables daily, especially our dark green vegetables. So the 6 times a week, the portion size would be, for example, 1/2 cup cooked or 1 cup raw. For example, if it was a leafy dark greens like an arugula salad, it would be 1 cup. Say 1 cup a day is 1 portion, okay? Or if it was something that was cooked, it would be 1/2 a cup, say, of bok choy, or 1/2 a cup of spinach. The bitterness of the green adds a further benefit. As an oncology dietitian, when I had looked this up, there was something about the bitterness of food that was also more cancer protective. So fascinating. Nuts, 5 times a week. Certainly even a 1/4 cup of nuts could be a portion size. And walnuts are one of the stars when it comes to the type of fat that is in walnuts. You wouldn't know it by the label. But anyway, that's one of the cellular ones, besides a lot of ones that we always hear. Whole grains, not, for example, the word whole wheat, but it has to say whole grains, because whole wheat could be what? It could be white flour, okay? So we want to look for whole grain on a label. That could be something like quinoa. It could also be like our, for example, you know, I wonder, could anybody see this? This was an example of an oatmeal that says whole grain. I don't know if they can see it or not, but anyway, I'm holding up a Bob's Red Mill steel cut oats. So berries twice a week, and no recommendation. They didn't have any other recommendations for other fruits. Olive oil being the main fat. And then it talks about 5 foods to minimize or avoid. With butter, for example, less than a tablespoon a day. avoiding high-fat cheeses. Usually, the harder the cheese, it's going to be a healthier. For example, like Parmesan or Romano cheese versus like a Brie cheese, which would be a very certainly very high-fat, softer cheese. As you would expect, red meat, pastries, and sweets. Anyone know how much how much sugar we consume on a daily basis as Americans? Okay.
Some
I
people got put on mute, so go ahead and unmute yourself or check if you're muted if you have a guess.
can't hear anything. Should I go on? Okay. So it has been estimated that it's anywhere between, say, 17 and 22 teaspoons a day. Hopefully we're on the lower edge, but so anyway, males could have a little bit more. The recommendation from some of the institutions is 5 to 6 teaspoons for women and 9 teaspoons, this is per day, for men, like limiting it to that amount. And that's kind of interesting. Men get more of a free pass because they have more lean body mass. So if you're a very athletic woman, it might be that, and you have more lean body mass, it might be you can have a little bit more. So what I personally like to do is maybe one day just jot down how much sugar you're having. For example, anytime you see 4 grams of 4 grams of sugar on a label is 1 teaspoon. I'm not including fruit, okay? So just maybe look at that and say, hey, I think there's all females here today, that let me keep it to 6 or less teaspoons on a daily basis. We know sugar has no nutrient value. We know it's good for the soul. So I always say 85% of the good diet and a small amount for the soul. Could you put up the next slide?
Yes, and sorry, I'm also
Okay,
going
so
to
I'm
take
sorry, just
notes.
go back a bit. I want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that piece of it.
Mhm.
Okay. So when we talk about brain health, what is our prescription? We always saw examples of what this would look like, but there's also other nutrients kind of in the diet that we might need more of. The brain is sometimes called that it's greedy. For example, it takes up 20% of the oxygen we have and 20% of our calories. So it is very active. So we really want to feed what I call the elite athlete of our bodies. So the brain does need a certain amount of fat, and you might have heard of omega-3 fatty acids, and there are anti-inflammatory kinds of fat. And another component of that is ALA type of fat. So we know that we need enough B vitamins in the diet to nourish our brain. Usually that's not an issue, but in circumstances where there are deficiencies, say, of some of the B vitamins or some of the important fats, we do see things like more dementia, more confusion, okay, which can be fixed over time. But those were more uncommon things if again, people had deficiencies of those. So the B vitamins are involved in creating neurotransmitters. So some of the B vitamins are going to be found, for example, in our whole grains. So people maybe that are on very restrictive diets or keto diets probably are not going to get enough of the B vitamins because they're limiting their carbohydrate or not having carbohydrate in the diet. So omega-3 fatty acid is the #1 fat in our brain. Very interesting, huh? So in this MIND diet, they do encourage fish as well, like having a serving at least one time or more like twice a week serving of fish in the diet where we're going to get it from. We're also going to get these fats from some plant sources. For example, flaxseed is one of the highest that of the plant sources that we can easily add to things. The other nutrient is choline that's been reported on. And all of this mined out, I would probably say in the last 10 years, we're seeing more and more articles about it. So choline is a nutrient with the highest availability in animal products. For example, it's found in meats, beef, pork, chicken, it's found in meats. Also, it's found in eggs, especially egg yolks. So we do know the current issues with the egg availability. I do think eggs are a wonderful also protein source to include in our diet because it really is a great usable bioavailability form of protein that we can use. Also, choline is found in some plant sources like soybean, like shiitake mushrooms are some great sources. So think about maybe including more of those in your diet. Okay. Any questions on this diet? Oh, I don't know. Let's see if it talks about, they really didn't talk very much about the milk products other than avoiding the high-fat cheeses. And that's really kind of about it with the milk. And if you were going to have things like plain yogurt in the diet, Greek yogurt, for example. So we do need, of course, more research on this specific prescription for brain health, but these are some important ones to really start with now. And I also get a lot of questions about certainly fish health, the mercury. So there's great sources that you can go to, great apps like the Seafood Watch from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. There was also the Environmental Working Group, EWG, but I noticed that lately they encourage you to contribute to the site. So I don't recommend it as much for that particular reason.
Yeah. In the berries thing, you have a no recs for other fruits. What is RECS? No recs?
Oh, no recommendations for other fruits.
It's grapes, all right. I get the
Oh yeah, grapes, again, grapes are fine. I like to look at the whole diet as well too. This is not Sylvia, sorry, I can't tell.
It is, yes. And I was
Oh.
gonna check, just based on time, do we want to do questions now or do we want to hold them till the end? We're 10:24 right now. I think questions about the slide, definitely like the rec, that was a good thing to ask, but it's up to you, Brenda. I just wanted to like call them
Yeah,
out.
I can talk a little bit more and then we can take some questions. So yeah, so the berry group. And I realized too that in our environment, food is expensive. We might not, be able to get a lot of these things, but there is also more economical foods, certainly, to include. What's not on here too is the bean group, which is really very important as well. So the legume group, rather. Chickpeas, soybeans, lima beans, kidney beans, etc. And they promote greater, say, anti-inflammatory. And what is another great thing about these is they're very high fiber. So as we age, we often find that we're not having enough fiber in the diet, perhaps because of digestive issues, but we forget about them. So I would encourage you also to include those which are a greater amount of protein in the diet too. So one of the easiest things is certainly lentils because they cook so fast. You can also already get them cooked. You can buy them at places near Trader Joe's. I'm mentioning that because it's right here in North Beach. We have limited availability of places to shop here. But it is one of the highest sources of of fiber. For example, about 8 grams average of fiber per cup. So if you start with a quarter cup, a half a cup, I'd probably say start with a quarter cup if you have not been including those in your diet. Great fiber, which is anti-inflammatory, slows down the digestion of foods in a good way so our body could absorb them, okay, in a positive way. Okay. Yeah, I will take some of the questions at this time because it's coming up on 10:30 already. So do we have someone that has a urgent question or some things that they would like to ask?
I'd like to ask something.
Okay.
When you're trying to gain weight, when we're old, I have lost weight. I've always been thin, but I really look too skinny, and I want to try to put some weight on, but I want to do it in a healthy way. And I eat a lot of what we're talking about, but it doesn't seem to put any weight on me. So is there a way to do that in a healthy way?
Yeah, and I don't know what the health issues are. Usually I do an assessment and figure out what medications is the person on. What are
I'm on none, so.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
What other things I need to know about your medical history? And so perhaps these are things that could be addressed more privately. And I, do want to answer that question. But certainly some really, say, healthy, high-calorie foods, some of those really good fats, for example, are your nuts, your nut butter, almond butter, peanut butter that doesn't have sugar in it. I'm holding up a big thing of organic almond butter, for example. And let's see, so 210 calories in 2 tablespoons. So you might want to say, oh, I'll just eat it from the jar. I'll pull up a chair to the refrigerator, certainly keeping it in the refrigerator once you open it, because food safety, sanitation is real important, especially these days with all the recalls. But anyway, almond butter is fantastic. Maybe having a little snack between a meal with that. Avocado are amazing. There's a lot of avocado trees around here. When I do a walking tour, I sometimes point out the avocado trees in the neighborhood. So if you find them too expensive, they grow here, okay? Perhaps you know a neighbor or someone. Extra, like for example, also things like olive oil, which is encouraged with the MIND diet. And that would be way high in calories. Approximately 200, say 70 calories in 2 tablespoons. So it's really good, amazing calories, which you can add to anything. What did you have for breakfast this morning, Sylvia, for example?
I think that was
Oh,
Carol.
I think you're talking to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, the person who asked the question.
That's okay.
If you feel comfortable sharing with the group.
Oh, sure. I fixed myself this morning a 2-egg omelet with some diced up bell pepper and mushroom, and I use olive oil to cook with.
Right. So for example, it would mean adding extra olive oil or adding oil to it once it's cooked. Okay. If you were going on that day where you're including some cheese, certainly maybe a little feta cheese, which is more highly digested than cow's milk, for example, and that would really perk the calories as well. Having some whole grain, say, toast with it, putting a little avocado in it or avocado on the side. But anyway, all these things are really high calorie, and you have to continue doing it, not just saying for one day, but continuing putting these things on, perhaps thinking about if you could make a smoothie, because those we can usually consume more calories than when we're chewing on something. Okay, and spending a lot of time chewing. So these are some things. Did I address your questions?
Yes,
Your
thank you.
question. You're welcome. Anything else?
I like this plantain. You see the plantain?
I'm
From
sorry, what was that?
the plantain,
Oh, plantain.
Oh, okay, plantains?
and then it is supposed to be very high fiber, and then in the label it says that fiber was zero, directly fiber zero. The carbohydrate, the carb was 20 grams per serving, and then total sugar is 9, no added sugar. So this sugar portion and carbohydrate always confuse me. How come carbohydrate 20 grams, sugar is only 9? Does that mean carbohydrate? We get sugar from carbohydrate, but it's not 100%. So carbohydrate make up of what?
Well, thank you, first of all, for reading labels. Okay, so anyway, you said this was plantains. Which food was this?
It plantain chips, but no.
Oh, okay, plantain chips. Okay, okay. So in looking at this, for example, look at the serving size. Oftentimes they're going to be high in calories too because they're fried or even some baked ones. But anyway, sugar 9 grams. Sometimes that could be pertaining to the food itself. So it should say, were those added sugars or were they sugars natural to the particular food? Like if you looked up dates, for example, it would say sugar, but it's sugar from the date itself. They're not adding any sugar.
I read it for you. Total carb, 20 gram.
Right, right.
Total sugar, 9 gram.
Okay.
No added sugar, 0 added sugar.
Oh, 0 added sugar. Okay.
So
So
that 20 and the 9 always confuse me. I don't know why 20 is not 20. Only get 9 out of that 20 is.
yeah. Well, again, sugar is a carb. And so, but there's other carbs as well. So the plantain itself would have carbs, and part of that is natural sugar. So in this case, it sounds like they're not adding an additional sugar, but it's from the plantain itself, which is different. So you would look on a label for added sugar in particular.
When other label, if they say added sugar, does that mean that I have to add that 9 gram with the number that has an added sugar?
No, usually,
Now.
like I'm looking at the peanut butter right now, and it says total sugar 1 gram, and it says added sugar 0. Okay, so maybe the sugar is from the food itself. So what I include is just total, what I include is added sugar.
Oh, they are talking about simple sugar, the dangerous sugar.
Yes, they're talking about
Complex.
that's a good way of putting it. They're talking about simple sugars, which simple sugars are, of course, table sugar, any sugar added to a product, like cereals are notorious for adding sugar to them. But I would not count that sugar in the daily amount that we were talking about.
So just to recap, when we talk about limiting sweets, it's more so the added sugar section and less the total sugar, which is
Thank you. Yes.
yes. It's sometimes hard to read because the text can be very small on nutrition labels. So one trick that I recommended is if you can't read a nutrition label and you have your phone on you, you can take a picture of it and then zoom in on your phone, and then
That's
you can
great.
read that tiny text.
And again, this one has no fiber. So, we want to choose things that have some fiber in them. Okay, because even though maybe if that had a small amount of added sugar and it had fiber, fiber helps slow down so our blood sugar doesn't increase so much, if that makes sense.
I take half tablespoon of regular. It's like a Metamucil. They have the other brand. Regular is kind of a more fiber, and it looks like it looks brownish.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you can
powder
also get more fiber with things like flaxseed even added, and that would be high in the good fat that we need, say in the MIND diet. Did have some flaxseed, for example.
or flaxseed. I
Yeah,
think
just
sesame seed is good. Huh? Sesame seed is good. I am afraid of eating poppy seed. Poppy.
No, I get the reason why. Yes, I get.
Yeah. They say, oh, you will get false positive and all that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sylvia.
We do
Yeah.
have a couple more questions in the chat. Do you want me to
Yes, please.
those
I
right now?
can't see the chat at this moment.
No, no worries. I got you on that. So, Barbara had a question about
Oh, now I
what
can see it.
not
Yeah.
about what not to eat for a high cholesterol diet. So, talking about like good foods for lowering cholesterol, or just have low cholesterol in them.
Okay. Yeah, well, certainly even going with the diet that we've been talking about. And I would keep the sugar certainly lower for the cholesterol. We do know that sugars could elevate triglycerides in a heartbeat. So yeah, I would keep to the low sugars and certainly what's that? Is that Kathy? Wait, who is
Kathy, I put you on mute. There was some background noise. Sorry, Bernadette, you can continue.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for cholesterol, I mean, the usual things that we have been hearing, certainly, keeping the meat sizes smaller, including more of this, the fish twice a week if you can, kind of using your judgment about that. I know there's been a lot of issues about fish, the healthier sources of fish would be the fatty fish. Certainly, there's things like if people are able to eat them or like them, like sardines are just amazing. Still, the canned tunas. I know recently there was some issues on how they were packaged, but those are some great sources. You can go to the NIH, National Institute of Health, too, and find out more information, certainly about the cholesterol. But this MIND diet, the Mediterranean diet, is one thing to look at that diet pyramid because very helpful for, again, the cholesterol, the heart disease. And the Old Ways Mediterranean has actual kind of diet plans. They have two different books that you can send away for that have a 30-day meal plan in them. It was relatively expensive the last time I looked, maybe like under $20 for like for a small booklet that had 30-day meal plan and recipes to go along with it. So kind of starting there. And I don't know what your diet is like. Usually I review the diets and try to find ways to increase increase things in the diet or decrease other things that are not going to be beneficial to you.
And Bernadette, I'll get the name of that pamphlet from you again, and I'm collecting a little list of resources, and I'll send that out to attendees after the event today. So NIH,
Yeah.
I think that'd be helpful for people.
I did want to spend just a little bit on the ultra processed foods. I don't know if people have been following that. As I said, there was a whole thing in the New York Times about that not that long ago. Could you put the next slide, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a couple more questions in the group chat, but I can hold on to those till later if that's more convenient.
Yeah, well, maybe have a couple more minutes for that. So we know, of course, that there's unprocessed foods or minimally processed foods like fresh, frozen fruits and vegetables, our beans, our lentils. Processed foods would be things like that we do to foods either to extend the life of foods like preservatives or canning, like canned vegetables, canned fish. While unprocessed foods are clearly the best, that would be for example, making beans from scratch, but some healthy processed things, it would be beans in a can that are just more organic. And you can look at, if they were canning them with the right kind of can material, so to speak. So there's a lot about nutrition these days. So the ultra processed, and it's very interesting that I was looking at the ultra processed foods were developed to help us kind of is a disadvantage to us to eat more. Okay, but the ultra processed are foods basically made more in the labs or using ingredients that you wouldn't find in a grocery store. For example, you're not going to plant high fructose corn syrup and expect it to grow. Okay, or at least we hope it doesn't grow. But it's things like, again, you wouldn't find in nature. Additives, flavoring, color. And I don't know if people recently saw that they were talking about the red dye, number 40, and it's been outlawed. But these kinds of laws don't take effect, I believe, until like a year or two from now. So I would be very careful about not having a lot of the certainly red dyes. In the past, other red dyes have been outlawed, but it took a while to get them off the shelves. So also ultra processed would be things like energy drinks, chips, sodas, flavored yogurt, not plain yogurt, for example. So this UPF are linked to poor health, and it's based on observational studies. It means the researchers ask people about their diet and later track their health over years. So our goal with healthy aging certainly is what I call the healthy lifespan, okay? Not, for example, looking at, oh, what is my total longevity, but looking at healthy lifespan. And so, in that case, I would really look at downplaying a lot of these ultra processed foods. They were associated with many different health problems, including heart disease. So it is associated with more heart disease, mortality, morbidity, more deaths, more diabetes, more health issues too. Like recent things are coming out about greater anxiety and depression from consuming a lot of these. Okay, I won't go into some of the other studies. I know they tend to be cheaper, convenient, and they activate the reward center of our brains, for example, like, oh, this tastes so good. I'm secreting more dopamine, which helps me feel really great. And they show over and over, even in animal models, that animals will gravitate more towards these, say, the animal version of UPF, okay? And they're known that a lot of these additives disrupt all of our gut bugs or microbiomes in our bodies. And there's more and more information about, the brain and the microbiome in the literature. Okay, so I would look at limiting, and especially limiting those that don't have any valuable nutrients. Oh, if I like plantains, hey, it doesn't have any added sugar. It doesn't have any fiber. I know that. Maybe I can pair them with a couple nuts that do have some fiber in them, but lowering amounts generally. All right. So let me address some of these other questions. We have 15 minutes left. And Camille, why don't you, direct us?
Yeah, so are we done with the presentation? I can stop screen sharing.
Let's see, why don't you go to, let me see what the next slide is, please.
Oh,
Question.
perfect.
Okay, I didn't really go over the protein that much, but that's fine. We have 15 minutes, so let me see what your additional questions might be.
Okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing so it's a little easier for us to all see each other. And there is a question in the chat that says, comment on plastic in our brains, and another about our probiotic drink safe and how much per day, and then a comment on caffeinated drinks. So we can maybe start with the plastic in our brains. Do you know anything about that?
I know there's been an awful lot that talks about, and there's also a Netflix series. I'll have to look for the name of it. That's just pretty amazing and talking about our issues with all the plastics and the microplastics. And some of the things even look at like the high-end tea bags, that are made more of plastic. And so really kind of restricting them. I personally use more loose tea, to just get away from that piece of it. But yeah, it's a big issue, and knowing that they stay in our bodies, okay, the microplastics. And it's really hard to get away from plastics. For example, even some of the fruit containers, unfortunately, they're all packed in plastic. So I would say if you can see ways that you can help reduce your plastics, even if you go to farmers markets saying, oh, do you have something which is in cardboard? Just having more of this awareness so that the farmers and even the big industry starts looking at things a little bit differently. Even I've gone into other times places like Safeway, especially when it used to be in North Beach, and request things done differently. And I was amazed to see that if I was recommending certain products, all of a sudden they would appear. Like turmeric was one of the things that I fought for, the fresh turmeric, and I started seeing it. So your voice is very important. And so we really, really want to try to minimize this. And it's certainly not easy. But even if you have any of these like plastic storage containers, go for glass instead. Especially if you're going to heat up anything in the microwave. We don't want plastic containers because the heat kind of activates the plastics where we would have more in the food when it's heated. Okay, so that's one way of kind of minimizing and help protecting us more. And yeah, the brain does not like plastics. It may impede a lot of the pathways in the neurotransmitters kind of in the brain that it can't communicate with other parts of the brain as effectively. So we do start accumulating more. So sort of going back to say, choosing whole foods, less processed. I know it's harder, and it's harder because oftentimes we don't want to cook as much. Maybe we've been cooking for 50 years, okay, 60 years, but trying to look at what you have, maybe looking at what you have in your cupboard, thinking about, and even thinking about, oh, could I plan a 3-day menu, a 7-day menu? Most people don't. Could we have even a show of hands? How many people know what they're having for dinner tonight? Okay. Usually it's not very much. It may be different in this group. Thank you, Camille. Yay. Okay. So I can't see that, but really starting to look at that more. Again, I dealt with a cancer population, and we always looked at this, and a lot of their issues certainly was fatigue too. So we talked about how this could be accomplished. Okay, does that answer your question on plastics? Oh, it was specific to microwave. Is that true? Yeah.
I think microwave was a follow-up to
Okay.
the original question. Mhm.
Yeah. So you don't want to microwave it. And if you have a food that comes in plastic, I would just put it in actually a glass container or, a plate, for example. Oh, yeah. Hopefully you're not using plastic plates. It's
Plastic
very
cup.
convenient, yes. So I have some friends that do like plastic, but plates. But I said, okay, use your paper plates. All right.
Mhm.
So there was a question on the probiotics too.
Mm-hmm. On
So
probiotic.
there is a number of probiotics. It's not so much in how much it contains, but what the source or what the strain is. Lactobacillus GG, for example, Saccharomonious, blah, 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 blah. So what I go by, and even when I was talking about my sister, for example, if one of you has been on antibiotics, there's certain strains that are better for you. So it's where you are in time. I have some people that go traveling and it's like, oh, you might want to choose this strain of probiotics because it's helpful for prevention of C. difficile diarrhea, for example. Okay. Over the counter, I mean, there's a lot of different ones. I do like ones that are refrigerated, like BioK is one of them. And you take one thing, one little, one little bottle a day. And probiotics or prebiotics. So they're in a number of food naturally. Certainly yogurt is great. And always look at the date on foods because the further out the date is that the food has probiotics in it means that the probiotics are probably more active. Okay. So, I mean, Culturelle is one over the counter. There's certainly a number of them. And so, as I said, I tend to go more with the ones that are refrigerated and see how these things are stored if you go into a supermarket too. And again, not just the quantity, like, oh, we have billions in this product, but the type or the strain of it. Okay. So there's strains more associated with, oh, I have had I was on antibiotics. Or, if I just want it generally, again, the one I mentioned, I think BioK is a good place to start with all of this. And for certain conditions, there's different ones, people that have digestive issues, certain types of symptoms, which we don't have time to go into today. But no, it's very fascinating. So whether or not a food that advertises, oh, this is really rich in some of the probiotics, I would just be a pretty educated consumer and say, oh, I might want to do an over-the-counter supplement, or I might want to have more fermented foods in my diet. I might want to put a little miso, okay, in my foods. Of course, it adds a lot of sodium, but I might have a little thing of miso soup. That's great for the prebiotics, for example. Okay, and as I said, fermented foods as well is the very good food source of that. I know it's not for everyone. For example, kimchi. Okay, that is really great, but it's not for everyone because I know it might be difficult due to the hotness or maybe digestive issues initially if you're not used to that culturally or not used to having a lot of those in the diet.
Sauerkraut.
As I said, yes, sauerkraut is certainly one of them. The fermented cabbage. Okay. And if you're going to try these things, I just encourage people start slowly. Just like exercising, if you go to the gym and all of a sudden I'm spending an hour and I haven't exercised, oh, my muscles are feeling sore. I don't feel so great. So I don't want you overdoing it and then regretting it. Okay. The same with even having more fiber in the diet. Start slowly to prevent a lot of the maybe the flatulence and the bloating that some people might have for that. Okay. And it is very difficult to get the 28 to 35 grams of fiber in every day. Okay. All right. Save
The
pickle and
cabbage that I sliced to the like julienne very thin, and then I soak it in the vinegar and
Sophia, I'm very sorry, but we do have a couple more people in line ahead of you to ask questions. So I'm gonna ask you to hold on to that thought. One other person wanted to comment on caffeine drinks, like caffeinated drinks. Can whoever asked that question elaborate on it? And then while they're elaborating on that thought, one person asked about, can you speak on expiration dates on other foods?
Okay, well, expiration dates, for example, is it expiration dates or best buy dates? Okay, the best buy has to do with the quality of the food. The expiration dates, I would certainly go by. If it says expiration, then I would go by expiration. Like I'm looking at, for example, I have this thing of nutritional yeast that I had on my oatmeal this morning with my flaxseed, and it says best buy. Okay, best by July of 26. So that is assuming also that you store it appropriately or correctly. This says store in a cool, dry place. Okay, so again, if it's past the expiry date, I probably wouldn't have it. If it's past the best buy date, it's really up to you, and it depends on what the food is too. So without knowing more, usually I say it's okay by the best buy date and greater. Okay, and that's usually has to do with the quality of the food. I'm suffering from some quality of it. Okay, maybe, yeah, certain vitamins aren't as active. But I think we do waste too much in this country, but it is important to observe these kinds of dates. You know, like if you had a canned foods last a really long time. If it's after the expiry date, then, you know, I wouldn't have it. Does that answer your question, Jean? Okay.
That was very thorough. So answered, yes, she said I answered a question. Does anybody else who hasn't asked a question yet, does anybody else have a question?
Caffeine one. What about the caffeine question? So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So Kathy, in particular, how much you
no,
should.
it wasn't me that asked it. I
Oh,
thought you were
okay.
waiting for the person that asked it. I was curious what they were asking.
Yeah.
So they asked about grams of caffeine per day, and is it possible to drink caffeine drinks safely?
Well, it depends on the drinks you're talking about. You know, are you talking about those, you know, green tea drinks with all the added sugar into? I mean, are you talking about things like Red Bull, you know, which, you know, it's really starts your heart in a heartbeat. But it's very interesting in the oncology world. There's some positive things about drinking coffee. If a person hasn't been doing it, I don't recommend starting. I also know, even myself, I have a lower caffeine tolerance. What I mean by that is kind of a shakiness, or it's not good for your nervous system. I just don't feel good, and I feel more dependent on it. So especially if people are used to drinking coffee and all of a sudden they might stop, it's like, oh, I feel really foggy and I just can't operate without it. Okay. If you certainly have like a cup of coffee a day, it's fine. But what size is your coffee? You know, is it 8 ounces? Is it 20 ounces? Is it supercharged? I don't know, Pete's, or, you know, these expensive coffees that one sees out there? Are you just doing, you know, what else are you having with the caffeine in it? Is it high sugar? Is it, you know, what else is in it? But I certainly think 1 or 2 cups seems fine for, you know, it seems fine. If you have problems sleeping, usually after about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, if you're going to sleep at, you know, 10, 11 p.m., it should be fine, but it has like a long life in the body. So if you're having problems sleeping at night, I would tend to have it earlier in the day. Okay. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of things, not only say, certainly the amount. When are you having it during the day? Are you having it as pickup in the afternoon? I would prefer, say, healthier things, or even, you know, some things like an herbal tea, or tea has less caffeine than coffee too, and a lot of the benefits. So I'm sorry, I'm not going into specifics, probably has to do with your weight as well, and how you handle caffeine, weight and sex. Okay. So I
That's
can't
perfect.
tell you specifically how many grams to have per day.
And that kind of answers the drink before noon question as well, because it's, it's very dependent. Like some of our members go to bed at 5 p.m., some go to bed at 5 a.m. So, depends on the person. But I think that was a pretty comprehensive answer.
Thank you, Camille. All right.
Lovely. Does anybody else have any questions? We're kind of past the original length of the presentation, but we can be a little bit flexible on that. Bernadette, what's your availability?
Yeah, just a little bit longer, but I do want to
Yeah.
know, and I want to hear from people what they think would be helpful. I originally thought that these kind of chats might be helpful, and also looking at, hey, doing an assessment of one's own diet, or what kinds of things can we include per day. Maybe having a chat group that says, oh, this is how I'm lowering sugar in the diet, or this is a new thing that I've tried. So there's various ways. There's also things like, cooking classes, or maybe getting some short videos, 10, 15 minutes, and then looking at, oh, could we change our diet to reflect any of this? So,
Okay.
Bernadette, maybe we can talk offline about possible videos, because I think, like shorter, helpful videos on specific topics are super helpful for people.
yeah, I have no idea what that sound is. I'm sorry, in the background.
Oh no, it's okay. I think it
Sounds like a
I don't really know.
a smoke detector thing starting, maybe.
Yeah, it might be here, so I do apologize.
Yeah.
But anyway, I
I think
see
it might
it.
be me. I think I hear it coming from behind me. Oh wait. Leslie, I think that might be you.
Yeah,
Oh, it stopped.
Oh, you're on mute now.
Oh, that's why.
But it,
Oh, okay. Well, that's
It
good.
it did
stopped.
stop,
It's
yes.
unmute.
Yeah, and I
Um,
know Next Village is such a wonderful organization.
Yes.
I totally want to support it in every way, but and this is one thing where, hey, I might need some help with this, with the smoke alarm because it's beeping. It needs a new battery.
That was
yeah,
good.
I'll follow
And
up with
I
you
don't
after.
One
feel
more
like
thing, one small thing. Yeah.
one small thing, and I don't feel like my balance is good enough to get up there and to look at it. So it's
The Filipino, they love vinegar. They almost drink vinegar. They are crazy like that. They say it cleans the gut.
and could you enlighten us as to what vinegar is?
Just a rice vinegar.
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 Vinegar. Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
what did I do?
vinegar.
What did I do was I cut those cabbage in julienne cuts, and then I soak it in vinegar, and 2 or 3 days I get one handful, and then I rinse it out, and when I eat my meal I have that as a crunchy and sour, but not too sour. So
Right.
I clean my gut in a more healthy way and with a fiber, clean it
There,
out.
there you go, huh? It
Great.
helps with the whole digestive system from the mouth all the way down there.
And then we got 2 more questions in the chat, so I'm gonna shout those out before I do have to jump off in
Yeah,
about
I need
5
to.
minutes. I have another presentation today. If anyone wants to learn about passwords and technology teaching, that's at 11:30, so come on down. But we have a question: is it okay to eat flounder 7 days a week? And then a recommendation to cover foods when using the microwave.
Okay. Oh, to cover foods.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, certainly, we talked about with a microwave, certainly to microwave in glass whenever possible, or actual plates. Sometimes I will take a plate, a china plate, for example, and just cover it with a plate rather than using the plastic wrap. So that is an easy thing, and also we get to use less plastic in our environment, which we're hoping for, and it saves money too. Yay! So no, I would again cover it with a dish, for example, Could be something, if the storage container or the things you're using doesn't come with a glass cover, you can use these other things to cover it. Other times, like for example, if I did my oatmeal this morning and I did it in a very large like glass measuring cup, like a 4-cup, and I put it in the bottom of it, and so it wouldn't come over the top. So those are some additional recommendations if they work for you. Flounder, I would check the sites that I talked about to see about the current safety. It's not one of the ones that is really high in the fatty. The fatty fish are more like, salmon, mackerel, the sardines that we spoke about. The sardines are really great. I've learned to really like them, a great source of protein. And then because they're so small, they don't accumulate a lot of the mercury in their little bodies. Okay, so that's kind of advantage. And I know even here in North Beach, there's like places that just specialize in sardines. A restaurant up the street. So flounder, I would probably include other fish rather than having that on a continual basis. Okay, and check the seafood watch. Usually it is one of the things that is more approved, but for consumption, because it's lower in the mercury, but things could change at any time. And that's why I like giving you the tools that you can use in case there is changes regarding this. Okay, so thank you, everyone. And yeah, my email to you is very good nutrition, very good diet, not only for brain health, for really good energy too. So really thinking about what you can do every day, even if it's a simple thing. Okay, so thank you all. And as my name implies, the very good feast.
Thank you for viewing this Next Village video recording. We hope you enjoyed it. Please help us spread the word and tell friends and neighbors about Next Village events and services for seniors and adults with disabilities in San Francisco. Visit our website to learn more about our vibrant, growing network, as well as to view our calendar of upcoming Zoom and in-person events and activities in San Francisco. Our website is nextvillagesf.org. Contact us to join our email list to learn about events and resources for seniors in San Francisco. And subscribe to the Next Village YouTube channel by clicking the button below.